This is a sonnet about false love in one of its many guises. It's called Band of Gold. He beckoned to me, singing his song, the stage circled by a sparkling gold band. He took one step out, as if it weren't wrong. I liked him. I didn't like his left hand. He lulled me with words I was longing to hear, whisperings disguising trouble and strife. That demon's voice filled me with fear. He'd made a bed where he lied to his wife. I dreamt he turned me into a vampire, taking me far from all those that I loved. And a robin I stopped from flying higher was a sparrow I'd crushed, its redbreast blood. I woke from love masquerading with greed, laid the undead to rest, felt my soul freed. This poem's called Heartbroken and Hungover in Oxfam Books and Music. Heartbroken and hungover in Oxfam, neither a safe states to be in, amongst the shelves where I bought you that book, the one about guitars and zen. I browse what's now called pre-loved poetry, while a song makes me feel tortured. Donated Juliet is in dire straits. Everything in here's unwanted. I find a napkin in my bag just in case the rising tide of tears overflow, as each book mocks me with cruel verses I read differently not long ago. I fight the urge to rip out the pages, scrunch them up and set them alight. Such behaviour in a charity shop might feel good but wouldn't be right. I scan for editions by Sylvia Plath, none. Her works don't get regifted. But 2 copies of Crow perch on the rows. Ironic, Ted's get discarded. To try and distract myself to not cry, on the napkin I write in a scrawl. 'Cause the notebook you gave me with roses on, I shut out of sight in a drawer. Back home, I transfer this into that notebook. Poetic justice, don't you think? The dam breaks, the rose pages get watered, and black petals are made from blurred ink. This poem's called Bike, Book and Bench. I rest my bike on the bench in the middle, the best of 3 overlooking the estuary. Under the warm blanket of clouds covering the sun, I open my book to read Sylvia's yew tree. Until a sharp pain from something so small brings me back to real life's buzzing and biting. I flick the insect away from its feast of my blood as a burning begins to spread from its sting. The bench on my left has young love on display, the man's arm staking claim over his woman's shoulder. The other side watch a lone bird ride the currents. They're much more sedate, about 40 years older. I turn a fresh page to Yeats's rare mountain hare, but again I'm brought out of my reader's retreat by a family babbling towards sheep that are grazing on salt marsh that adds flavour when they're made into meat. The seats stay the same, the couples have changed. At one a man's moaning about the lockdown. It's like the words my head's failing to silence. There's no escape in sleep, home, countryside or town. Breezes chase each other through the leaves and grass, even the trees stand in pairs forever entrenched. The bike waits to be ridden, the book lays unread. Not alone, but all alone, I sit on this bench. This is a poem in ballad form. It's called Neil Young is Everywhere, whether you want him to be or not. Sue knew a man who worshipped a singer. Gaz took his gospel, each Neil Young lyric, had Neil Young for breakfast, lunch and dinner, even dressed up like that ageing peacenik. On his mission, Gaz used Neil Young's music to tell Sue it was love, not an affair. All talk, no trousers, a married man's trick. Neil Young was everywhere, Gaz was hot air. Sue tried not to miss her love pretender, watched the flick to forget that fanatic. She groaned, the film showed a mountain climber, on top play Old Man, a Neil Young classic. At karaoke she heard guitars lick a Neil Young song she wanted to murder. Even outside proved a Neil Young nightmare, a harvest moon shone, a joke too cosmic. Neil Young was everywhere, Gaz wasn't there. Gaz had talked big of live now, pay later. Sue sought peace of mind at a health clinic. The nurse said, that's like Neil Young's, it's better to burn out than fade away. Sue felt sick, convinced Gaz has made her a statistic. But Sue was fine, needing no Medicare, just for being with a bit of a dick. Neil Young was everywhere, Gaz was nowhere. Rick sat by Sue, he spoke like a hurricane. Sue asked Rick's music taste, made a prayer. You can guess Rick's answer, it's ironic. Neil Young made them a pair, Neil Young is everywhere. The Hawthorn, a Petrarchan sonnet. A native bush from the north, the hawthorn, when grown in the right hemisphere you'll find it sometimes has the power to spellbind lost hearts drifting over the wilds forlorn. One bush stands fast on a fell weather worn, thriving despite the elements that grind. Its barbed branches catch me, I become entwined. The thorns pierce my skin, my feathers are torn, deep within the bush's heart is ablaze. I peck the thorns out, flick them on the fire. The flames form a song thrush, wings scratched and grazed. We heal our wounds cooing with desire, feed each other berries, gather white bouquets, and make our nest in the hawthorn briar. The Last Waltz. The courting lovebirds danced. He pushed forwards, entranced, forced her one step behind. His leading turned her blind. He made moves, she sidestepped, held too tight, she felt kept. Feet unswept, she flew, freestyle. I did a bicycle tour travelling around locations to do with Wilfred Owen, and afterwards I wrote a poem about it. So this is called A Wilfred Owen Odyssey, a spring cycling offensive. My bike's fully loaded, my own pack mule, a pilgrimage of Wilfred Owen poetry, riding south between the Pennines and the Irish Sea, I set my sights for distant Liverpool. You can't miss it, says a man, I ask for directions. Casting his curse, I get lost different ways, till I skirt Leyland where tanks were once made. I'm relieved I've survived it through Preston. Spring lambs bounce around flat fields in the Ribble, near two crows ganging up on a baby squirrel. The B road takes me over 6 screaming lanes to a scouse bus honking with offensive disdain. In Birkenhead, a statue called Futility shows a man with his head in his hands who sat with a wreath of paper poppies in his lap. The bronze remains dull, although it's sunny. Expecting a veteran, I meet a musician who went to the BI, Wilfred's old school. Only a wall remains where a cruel head caned kids for breaking archaic rules. In his Wilfmobile, he shows me locations. Did you know a dead famous poet lived there? The people living inside couldn't care. Then it's back to the Wilfred Owen Museum, hearing how he's adapted poetic rhythm into a Wilfred Owen musical. Near Chepstow, I rest in a cyclist's cafe, where a roadie shows me a safer greenway past a cemetery where rows of soldiers fill, uniform graves standing to attention. Despite the forecast, there's miles of cold wet stuff, but warm showers greet me at Oswestry from members of that cycling community. There's Wilf's birthplace, another statue, an exhibition, a plaque, a park in the church where he prayed. A Wilfred lemon and poppy seed cake was made by the librarian, second place in a bake-off. I wait by a country field as cows are unloaded. One runs bellowing, it's separated. In another truck is its baby calf. It's quieter when I reach city grass outside Shrewsbury Abbey, whose bells when they were ringing war's end. That's when Wilfred's mum got news he'd died. At a pub B&B, I stop cycling. In the bath, the acoustics sound great being read. Wilfred Owen by Richard Burton on YouTube before bed. To the trees, a terza rima. Cycling home, the road levels out, but rising anxiety sends me round bends to where there's less doubt. To the trees I regard as friends, who line the off-road travelled less. One branch to another extends. Leaves whisper their soothing caress, their green sanctuary easing stress. I wrote this after visiting a statue which commemorates Wilfred Owen in Hamilton Square in Birkenhead. The statue is called Futility, after Wilfred Owen's poem, and it shows a soldier sitting in despair. This is my own poem, thinking about what's changed over 100 years after Wilfred Owen's poem in World War I. 100 years after Wilfred Owen's Futility. Put the soldier's statue on a corner opposite the square. Named like the poem, Futility sits near the cenotaph that keeps score of those who were lost in battles won. All the statue can do today is warn. War games aren't played for fun. Shake hands, politicians, for honouring the heroes who die. Their blood turns black your profit margins when you sell arms for the MOD. Is it for this war machine we mourn? Their blown arms, their left legs, their right minds, and fake poppies get worn? This is a poem about a group cycle ride where we were supposed to visit Tintern Abbey, made famous by William Wordsworth. Didn't quite get there. It's called Tintern Abbey, lines composed quite a few miles away at a garden centre in Chepstow. I sought out romantic enlightenment to create, like Wordsworth, a spot of time, as writing Tintern Abbey did for him, where his poem recorded a snapshot to think back on fondly in future times. I studied Will's poem the night before my first ride out with Bristol CTC, planning to cycle to that same Abbey. Wild Gothic images formed in my mind, me on a sublime epic adventure to ruins amongst lush dramatic hills. The cyclists met at a water tower. From England we battled cold driving rain. Over Over the old Severn Bridge, winds joined us, screaming through its two huge white tuning forks. Once across, we sheltered in a tunnel in which a spray-painted cartoon dragon welcomed us to Wales, Croeso I Cymru. The Bikes Club's bigwigs held a committee. Clawed, wet fingers were raised in favour, 2 abstained, only my digit against. Tintern Abbey's ruins were abandoned. The vote, visit Chepstow Garden Centre. Potted plants framed that sanitised landscape. Our soggy arses sat in its cafe. I grumpily cradled a large latte, devoured a cherry and almond slice. As we all warmed up, my mood lightened too. The seeds of new friendship germinated, opening up wider my narrow view. The result, a spot of time memory, surpassing academic pretensions, different roads to the same destination. This is a poem about a cycle commute I did in Bristol, going home through an underpass which is never great at the best of times. This particular underpass shows how Bristol used to make some of its money. It's called Junkies in the Underpass. I cycle quickly past the Junkies in the Underpass. Their dealer stands dead centre, a white man dressed in black, astride a bike with no lights. This underworld, his stage. Evening, braces king of short, sharp pricks, as I ride wide of him, peddling his shit to 2 locals laid low between the broken glass and grit. His shout carries a glint like the water in the bottle, and the tarnished metal spoon that I spy left at pedal level, a scene waning like the moon. Yellow light reveals them huddled beneath the underpass's mosaics, which depict a long history of most of Bristol's trades. This current exchange excluded, and the sugar, and the slaves. Graffiti scrawls across the pictures, letters and words all strung out. Not street art, not a Banksy, just a public place to face. It's an update representing this exact time and space. So I started trying to be more environmentally friendly, and I thought I would write a verse a day about trying to do that. So this is a year of trying to be environmentally friendly, a manifesto in a sonnet. To be environmentally friendly is what I propose to do for a year, documenting my endeavours daily, in poetry that's nowhere near Shakespeare. Wilfred Owen said poetry must be truthful. Truth is, just like you, I'm a hypocrite. So I'll write about when I'm successful, and a weapon of mass destruction dimwit. Can just one person make any difference? It's worth trying to win rather than lose. I'll ride my bike to help go the distance. Reduce, recycle, reuse and refuse. I'll publish my progress in being greener at VerseCycle on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. These are some of the verses which I've been writing in a year of trying to be environmentally friendly. It's not easy being green. So I started this last year and I'm now at verse 267. So this is a few from that so far. Verse 6. Do I buy what I need, which is 1 loose lemon, or the organic 4-pack not pesticide sprayed on a black plastic tray wrapped in cellophane? I opt for the single fruit in this conundrum. It's not easy being green. Did I get it right or wrong? Verse 18. I'm getting confused by people alone in cars, getting angry at other people alone in cars. People spinning in the gym have driven. Riding a real bike reduces congestion. It's not easy being green. Cycle, walk or run. Verse 55. I had a bath which uses lots of water to soothe not just my body but also my soul, while listening to the sounds of a forest and a river, then reused that water to flush the toilet bowl. It's not easy being green. Using things more than once is my goal. 129. I moved north from south over a year ago, bringing boxes of books I've still not read. There's a Japanese word for this, sonduko. I'll never read them. I'll sell them instead. It's not easy being green. By someone else, they'll get read. 131. I'd like to be properly recycled. No embalming fluid or cremation for me. When my time comes, I want to be plant food. I prefer to decompose naturally. It's not easy being green. I know I sound a bit hippie. 175. The pages of a book I write these verses in, I tear out and put in the recycling bin. But now that toilet paper's an endangered species, I'm saving all my paper for snot, pee and feces. It's not easy being green. We're all gripped by panic buying fevers. 201. I watched the pink full moon rise above Clougha Pike, as lambs with their mams were herded by a quad bike. This supermoon rose at its closest perigee, its light shining through every dark century. It's not easy being green, but it's not really pink, doesn't matter to me. 218. A short bike ride takes me past a local farmer who leaves eggs for sale at their land's border. But COVID's turned society cashless. I've no change left, can't pay with contactless. It's not easy being green. I don't know the answer to this scrambled mess. 236. The cat's got her own green type of TV, which doesn't use any electricity. She watches what's on the back window tonight, changes channels to the front, lit by fairy lights. It's not easy being green. I think the cat's got entertainment right. 252. Now that the lockdown seems to be lifting, I'm not sure if society's learned anything. A homeless man's had to return to his spot in the street. The traffic's back from its temporary retreat. It's not easy being green. I think our mistakes will repeat. 260. In the supermarket, I followed the arrows, one way, no turning back with my trolley. I remembered mozzarella and tomatoes, missed the olives, gone forever, like Eurydice. It's not easy being green. My shopping's become a Greek tragedy. Only another 105 or 6 verses to go.